But first, we're going to talk to Paul about the economy, the jobs number.
Hey, Dan.
Paul, the recession ended 33 months ago.
Yep.
And here we are talking about monthly jobs numbers, and we don't know whether the arrow's pointing up or down or lying flat in the water.
Well, it's pointing
what
up.
is the problem?
It's pointing up, but it's not pointing up with a great deal of enthusiasm. It was a shock, I think, to a lot of people, the March numbers, because they're about half the pace of the previous 3 months. The gains were 120,000, and the labor participation rate continues to fall, 63.8, which is a full 2 percentage points lower than it was in 2009, February 2009. So it's distressing. We can't seem to break out into a real cruising speed on this economy. Every time you think we've just turned the corner, we're going to get bigger, better growth, it disappoints.
Well, the labor participation rate sounds particularly like a down signal. I mean, if more people at this point are still withdrawing from the labor force, it raises the question of, once again, whether this is just cyclical or whether people are just saying this economy has nothing for me, I'm throwing in the towel.
Well, there's a debate among economists about, particularly with the baby boomers, people who are 65, 60, even 55, they lose their job, right? Your prospects aren't fabulous if you lose your job at this age. Yeah, you can go and maybe sling some hash somewhere, but can you get a job back, at a comparable salary? So what happens is a lot of people will say, you know what, I just can't do it, and they'll back out of the labor market. And some economists say this is going to shrink the labor market naturally over time, so don't get too alarmed by the decline in the labor participation rate. On the other hand, you and I both know what happened to 401ks during the recession.
They got hammered.
Yeah, our friends, we're all doing mental recalculations saying, well, okay, I was going to retire. I don't think so. I'm going to have to work that extra 4, 5, 6 years just to make sure that if I live to 80, 85, my wife and I have enough money to get by. So I think that it's a very bad sign at this stage of the recovery to see the labor market shrinking. And if the signal is that baby boomers, who I think will have to work longer than they expected, are suddenly saying, you know what, I just can't do it. There's nothing for me. I got to withdraw from the labor market. That's a very bad sign.
Well, it's a terrible sign. What do you think the political implications of this are? It looks like we're about to get a Republican presidential candidate. President Obama has clearly begun his campaign. How does this play for him over the next, 5 or 6 months? Boy, he needs some brightness out in the economic sky.
He does. It's very interesting to look at the potential implications, and I think that it depends on what we see in the next few months. If over the next 5, 6 months we go back to 2.25, 300,000 in job creation, then Obama's probably going to win, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I do, just because they'll get that momentum. But there's a lot of people out there who say, look, that's not what we're going to see. We're not going to see that consistency. And, we've had each of the last 2 years, 2010, 2011, we thought about winter. Oh boy, things are looking better. They're looking better for jobs. They're looking better for GDP. And then it, fell back down to almost the edge of recession in both cases. Are we going to have another false dawn from this winter and see another decline in the spring? Nobody knows, and I'm certainly not smart enough to know.
Yeah.
But I do think that if we only get 120,000 jobs month to month, Obama's in trouble.
Well, with an incumbent, the question is always whether you're going to fire the president, whether he's done a good job or
That's
not.
right. That's the first calculation people make.
And I think based on some of the anxiety you've been describing, if people are sitting on their hands at home, they're going to be upset.
I will say this, though, Dan. I've thought for about 1.5 years now that this is not going to be an election like 1980, say Reagan against Carter, where the voters had pretty clearly decided they were going to fire Carter. The only question in their mind was whether Reagan was going to be an acceptable risk.
Yeah.
This is not going to be, on the other hand, at all like 1984, where Reagan was running for re-election, the voters decided we're going to re-up that guy. And it didn't matter, frankly, what Walter Mondale did. He was going to lose that race. The only question was the magnitude of his defeat. But this is a case where voters are on the edge.
Yeah.
And I think this is the case in which Mitt Romney just can't say, you know what, I'm going to coast in because the economy's so bad, people want to fire Obama. He's got to make the case.
Yeah.
He's got to make the sale. He's going to make the connection between what happened in 2007 and 8, how Obama and his policies haven't really gotten us the recovery we want,
right,
and how he can change that and make it better. He's going to make that sale. I don't know if he's up to it.
It's going to be fascinating, Paul. I mean, we're going to have a presidential campaign run over an economy that obviously has deep, long-term structural problems, and these two are going to have to somehow come to grips with it and explain it to the American people.